Hi, my name is Glenn Hasselman. I'm just making this video for the free accounting software users to show you guys the complete single touch payroll process from the point at which you just first start using single touch payroll. So setting up some year to date figures and lodging your first single touch payroll batch. And I've just installed the software and I've got a video to show you how to do that. That's pretty quick and easy. And I haven't even created my free accounting software identity file yet, so I'm just going to do that right now. So this is the first screen that greets you after you install the software. So put my name in and pick a password, telephone number, and email address. Alright, if you are a tax agent or BAS agent, you obviously put these agent details in as well. Create FAS identity. Normally it doesn't ask you where to save the file to. The only reason it's doing that with me is because I've already got a separate FAS identity, so it is saving it somewhere else. Okay, now after you create your FAS identity, the next thing to do is set up your business file. So in free accounting software, you got your identity file. That's got a digital certificate in it, and it's used to unlock your business file. You'll have your separate business file. You can actually have multiple separate business files. So this is what I'm setting up here. I'll just put this ABN in. This is just a test ABN. This is not anyone's real ABN. Alright. If the box goes pink, it means you've typed something wrong. So I'll just type that again. ABNs have a check digit in them, and okay, there we go. And then check digit, so that the software can tell if you've typed it wrong. Okay, and I'm just calling this demo Pty Ltd. This desktop software runs for a financial year, so you should have a separate file for each financial year. I'm just putting the 1st of the 7th 2018 through to the 30th of June 2019 and selecting yes that it's registered for GST. So save file as, and just save that file somewhere. The default name is mybusiness.fas, and I kind of think you'd save it somewhere like My Documents or something like that. You should remember to back up your file regularly so that if your computer dies you don't lose any data. And that also goes as well for your free accounting software identity file. The system, when you start it up, the system actually gives you a tip to back it up and tells you what file to back up. Anyway, after setting up the basics for the business, it takes me to this page which has got some additional details for the business. I probably should point out that there's an ABN branch here, and been getting a lot of questions. People don't know what their branch number is, and it's normally just one. If not, it's most often two, but it could be another number. So the way to check is to check a recent BAS, and there will be a branch number following your ABN. It's like they quote the ABN and then the slash and the branch number on there. The single touch payroll won't lodge without the branch number. Okay. One other thing to point out here, down here, is a business management system ID. So the theory behind this is that you could have a large company with different payroll systems, more than one payroll system. So that's what's used to identify each one. It defaults to just number 1, and I just suggest leave it as that unless you do have multiple payroll systems in your company. Okay, so I'm putting some additional information. My name as the contact. Now, on the Single Touch Payroll lodgement page, it will pick up these details. So you need to enter them. Just putting in an address. It's not a real address. Save. Okay, cool. So that completes the setup of my identity file and my business file. And if you are following this, you might want to pause the video at this point and go and complete that setup for yourself. Okay. The next thing we want to do is set up an employee. So now that's, I should point out, that's done in this, under this menu item setup and this option counterparties. So counterparties bracket customers, employees, etc. So counterparty is defined there as being a noun which is the opposite party in a contract or financial transaction. So unusual word, but it's a generic term for anyone you're dealing with or your business is dealing with, and I guess the point is there, it's not just employees, it's your customers, suppliers, and free accounting software is not just the payroll software. Although a lot of people are with Single Touch Payroll just looking for a payroll solution, you can use free accounting software for your full accounting needs. Okay, click Add New Counterparty, and we'll give the employee a name. Now on this page, not much of this info is used for Single Touch Payroll. I'll just put the address in. It's not actually used, but it might. I think it's the address that prints on the payslip. So you'll want to have an address there. The ABN is used only like if they are, well, for your normal customers or suppliers, you might want to put the ABN in, but it could be used in Single Touch Payroll if you have a voluntary agreement to withhold tax from someone, but that's not what I'm doing with this example. Email address, put in the employee's email address. This actually does go on the Single Touch Payroll lodgement, and I'm pretty sure the telephone number goes on that lodgement as well. Okay, now that's just a generic counterparty, so any customer or supplier is also set up in that way. We want to add more details because this person is an employee. So let's go to this button here which is employee details and put in some details. Now really just want to put in their rate of pay, but actually let's also put in their annual salary and some job title. Make this person a landscape gardener. So There's a legal requirement to put the job title or award classification and the award on the payslip. So set that up there, and then click Save. The next thing we want to set up is the TFN declaration for the employee. So there is a button here, Go to TFN Declaration Form. And we need to set this up because there is, and this is just a fake TFN number, but we need to set this up because these details get used for, well, determining how much tax to withhold, for one, and two, they actually get sent to the ATO with each Single Touch Payroll lodgement. So even if you have previously lodged the TFN declaration form, you need to just enter the details here. Okay, so the details of the payment arrangement are what determine how much tax is going to be held. So I guess that's the key details there, but you're really just filling in what the employee's given you on their TFN declaration form. Now, if you're just putting in details from previous, where you've got the TFN declaration, it's already lodged, you might just put no or leave this pay declaration box blank. I'm going to actually lodge this, so I'm just going to put yes and the date that the employee signed the declaration. Okay, the next thing is the payer's declaration, and let's just put some details in there. Okay, now I've got the test Oz key. This connects to the test ATO system. Select the Oz key and put in your password. So to lodge the TFN declaration, you click this lodge button and off it goes. So down the bottom of the screen here, which you can't see, there are some status update messages that happen, and it's already updated to say TFN declaration lodge complete. If I scroll back up to the top, the document status is now gone to lodge complete. Okay, so that almost completes the employee setup. We haven't set a Superfund for this employee, but if you're playing along and pausing as you go and setting up your own business, I'd say now's probably a good time to pause and set up the employee and the employee's TFN declaration. Now I mentioned we hadn't set up the employee Superfund, so let's do that. We go to setup and counterparties, and we've got just one counterparty here, which is the employee, but we need one which is going to be the Superfund. So click add new counterparty and call it the Superfund, or whatever the name of the Superfund is. You could put some additional details into here. You don't really need to, because you don't need to really have that many details on your on the Superfund. So save that. That's just set them up as a generic counterparty, but we need to add something as for them to be a Superfund. So there's a button here that says this is a Superfund, and click on that. And the only thing it wants is this unique super product identifier. Now, you don't need to put an actual super product identifier, you just need to put something so that the system knows it's an actual Superfund. So you can just put TBA. I'd probably recommend you put the ABN of the Superfund in there, and just just hit save. Okay, now once you've set up a super fund, you can then put the employee in that super fund. So go back to the employees setup by clicking on setup and counterparties and double clicking on the employee. Go again to employee details and go to super details. Add the employee's member number and select the super fund. Okay, and then click save. Okay, and that completes the employee setup. So you know, this is not something you have to repeat each time, of course. It's just an initial setup. You do have to maintain it, of course, so if details change, you'd go somewhere within here to update them. Okay. Now let's have a look at some of the other setups. I'm not going to there's nothing more that you actually need to set up for a simple payroll, but I'll just have a look at some of the things just to show you how it's set up. So in setup and tax codes, there is this first tax code. It's called gross taxable pay. Now I used to call that pay-as-you-go withholding taxable, but I've just changed the name. I think this name is more accurate or easier to understand. So click on gross taxable pay, or double click on it. Now it's going to go on your BAS at the label of salaries and wages. So when you pay someone with this tax code, that's where it goes on your BAS. It also goes on, well, what it's saying here is payment summary and TPAR classification. So in fact, it's a bit funny because there is no payment summary in free accounting software. It's the old name, whereas now it's Single Touch Payroll. So but anyway, that's what it's called. I'll probably change the name at some point. TPAR is Taxable Payments Annual Report, and that's another thing for contractors. So it uses this setup as well. So it goes to, when this tax code is used, it reports the amounts in the individual non-business section of the Single Touch Payroll lodgement, and it puts it down as the gross within that section. A tax classification, well, there's no tax directly withheld against this tax code. This is the tax code that determines what is taxable. So there's a different tax code for the tax itself. So that just says not applicable. Okay, but that's set up by default for you. You don't need to change this. Some people will need to make new tax codes and change things depending on what they're doing with the payroll. But for a simple one, you don't need to change it. So let's go back to the taxes list and have a look at pay-as-you-go withheld. So pay-as-you-go withheld goes on your BAS at pay-as-you-go withholding payable. So you withhold. This is where you withhold the tax from the employee, and you report it on your BAS and pay it to the ATO on the BAS. On the payment summary or Single Touch Payroll lodgement, it gets reported as in the individual non-business section, and the tax goes in the pay-as-you-go withheld for individual non-business. Okay, so that's a bit of the setup of tax codes. There's a lot more that you could set up, but it depends what things you've got for your payroll, and do more videos on how to set up various different things. Okay, now in accounts, so on setup and accounts, I'll just show you how one account is set up. So let's go to normal time. So double click on normal time. Normal time is an account that's set up as an expense. It gets super paid on top of it, so it's got this flag to apply super. If you were setting up a account which was for like double time or time and a half, you might say apply super false because it's an overtime and they don't get super on that. The default tax code is gross taxable pay, so that links it back to the tax code, and so that it knows where to report it in the Single Touch Payroll lodgement. Payment deduction type is earnings, and the normal rate is 1. So you're paying 1 times the employee's normal rate. If you're paying time and a half, that'd be 1.5, or double time will be set up at 2, and things like that. Okay, so that completes the setup of the Single Touch Payroll things. Yeah, now let's get on with paying an employee. Okay, so click on transactions and then batches. Now the first thing I want to do is actually set up a batch for the year to date. Single Touch Payroll gets lodged with year to date amounts. Okay, so today is the 10th of April, so it's actually a good time to switch because we've just finished the March quarter. So I'm going to do the March year to date. The batch is going to be created status. Payment date for this batch, I'm just putting the 31st of the 3rd, 2019. So any payment that happened on that date or before will be included in the year to date. Okay, put the 1st of the 7th, 2018 through to the 31st of the 2019. So the from and to date relates to the periods that the employee did work, but in actual fact, it's I'll do a payroll in the next payroll in a minute where they, if they worked the last week in March, it actually gets paid in April, so that's an April pay, not a March one. Anyway, so save that batch and go to batch transactions. So on this page it would list all your transactions for all your employees for the batch. We're just going to have one in this test run. So let's click add payslip and select the employee. Now using that normal time code, you could enter a quantity and a rate, but because it's year to date, I'm not going to do that. And the quantity and rate doesn't get sent to the ATO. You really just need the amount. So that's 3/4 of the year. So let's say the employees earn 35,000. Just scroll down a bit here. The next thing it's doing is it's calculating some tax. Okay, so that's very unlikely to be calculating the right amount of tax for the 9 months year to date. So on the left here there is this override tax calc box. We just want to change that to yes. That then allows us to edit this this amount, and let's say the actual tax withheld was 6,000, so I'll just put in 6,000. Now some people do override the tax calc on their regular pay because they want to add a little bit extra tax or whatever, and that's some feature that you can use. You can flick that override tax calc to yes and then edit that amount. Okay, on the superannuation side of things, it is more likely to have calculated the right amount here because super is a sort of flat 9.5% across all the earnings. So, but there could be roundings. There could be a month where they didn't earn the 450 dollars to mean they're entitled to super. So in that case, you will have to override the super calc as well, and just put in the correct exact amount. So we're not trying to do, in this case, when we're entering this year-to-date payslip, what we're trying to do is actually just enter exactly what was paid. We're not trying to enter like what should have been paid or correct amounts of anything. We just want to record exactly what was paid. Now down here is the pay event info. So this is the section that gets sent to the ATO. You see there's a lot of details which just copy from that TFN declaration form. In fact, I should point out as well, this is the year-to-date setup that I'm doing. So I'm not going to actually send this lodge this to the ATO. It's just setting it up for the next payroll. Anyway, you've got these gross and tax amounts coming through here. So just check that it's all okay, and if it's correct, then save that payslip. Okay, so that completes the setup of the year-to-date amounts for the employee, and you should repeat this for each of your employees. And now let's go and do the actual pay. If you sort of pausing this video now, it'd probably be a good time to pause it and then go and enter your year-to-date and then come back to this. If I click go back to the list, we can see there's one employee now in our list, and then in fact go back to batch edit. This batch is on created status. We probably can just lock it in by flicking it to authorize status and hitting save, and that just means that if someone tries to edit the payslip, it'll tell them no, you can't do that, it's on an authorized batch. So it's probably a good idea to do that. Okay, back to batch list, and we've got our one batch there. Now the next one I'll do is to add the first batch that we're actually going to lodge in Single Touch Payroll. So I click new batch. Now the payment date for this, let's say the employees are working from the Monday through to the Sunday and they're getting paid on the following Tuesday. So the first pay in April is actually the 2nd of Tuesday here. So and that pays them for the period from the 25th of March through to the 31st of March. So in fact all of that week was actually worked in March, but they're paid on the 2nd of April. So week ended 31 March. So it's kind of a little bit weird having a week ended 31 March, which is an April pay, but that's what it is. So because it goes by payday. So save that batch and go to batch transactions. Okay, I'm going to add a payslip for the employee and just scroll back up to the top of this page here. Select the employee, and when you select the employee, it brings in your year-to-date amounts. So these are the amounts we set up on the other payslip. Now we put normal time, and in this case we're just paying 38 hours. So the system is calculating 38 hours times $30 per hour and giving them the $1,140. It's automatically calculating the pay-as-you-go withheld and the superannuation. It brings in month-to-date information over here, and I guess when you're in fact I'll show you something here. Is if the employee only worked like 5 hours, okay, the total gross is or the super ordinary time earnings is just $150. They don't get super until they've hit 450 for the month. So this down here there's some month to date, or MTD it says, figures, and because month to date is only 150, they have got no super. Okay, so when setting up your, I guess it's, you want to keep that a little bit in mind when you're setting up Single Touch Payroll, because if, let's say we were doing the last pay in April, you could go and enter your year to date and enter it dated, 15th of April. So enter your year to date up to, say, mid-April, but it will work for Single Touch Payroll lodgement purposes, but your month to date figures will be incorrect, and that may not make a difference to the superannuation, but it may. So I'd say the best way to do this is entering your year to date to the end of a month, and then enter the pay slips since that start of that month. Okay. Alright, so let's just change that back to 38, so they're getting the super and pay as you go. Now if I scroll down there to the year-to-date amounts, we can see that it's adding the current pay into the previous year-to-date amounts, and that looks all good to me, so I'm going to save that. Okay, and this is just a one pay slip Single Touch Payroll batch, so I'll click back to list. In fact, if you had more pay slips at this point, you would click add pay slip and continue adding your employees' pay slips. If you're following the video, this might be a good point to pause it and actually go and enter the pay slips for your employees, and then come back to the video. Okay, so having entered all the pay slips, I want to click this button, back to batch edit, and then there's a button here which says go to STP Lodge. At this point, we really have already done all the hard work associated with Single Touch Payroll, and this page is just going to automatically bring in what's already been done. So you'll notice it's bringing in some details of the organization, which was from the organization setup. It's got the ABM branch and system ID that I pointed out at the start of this video. Down in the payroll details section, just want to point out a couple things. One is the payslip count is number 1, or just a 1, because we just got one payslip on this thing. Payroll totals. Okay, this section here has got payroll totals. These are the totals of just this batch. Okay, so whilst the employee has year-to-date figures, this total here is the total of all employees, but just for this batch. Okay, so don't get confused by thinking, hey, Single Touch Payroll is year to date. That's just this pay total. So, and that is correct. So anyway, review the information. If you're happy with it, tick this box to agree to the declaration. Put your name in, and then select your Oz key. This is just some test Oz key for the ATO test system. Password, and then there's this button here saying Lodge STP Batch. Okay, there's some status updates that appear at the bottom of the screen when you do that. You can't see them because I've sort of tried to show as much of the entry parts of the screen as possible. And what it said it very quickly. It says connecting to the ATO and doing Lodge, and then after about 1 second it's already just saying STP send complete, waiting 60 seconds, then retrieving messages. Okay, so just let it sit there for 60 seconds, and after 60 seconds it's going to refresh this page and tell you hopefully the lodge was successful. Whilst we're waiting, I could probably point out that there are another couple options of things to lodge on this page. Okay, so let's say you lodged something and it was wrong. You could change it to an amendment. Alright, here we go. Okay, great. This is exactly what you want to see. Green is good and the purple is the bad stuff, but this is refresh the page and it says message accepted, blah blah blah, okay. So there's this sort of code they use which says okay, and that's what you want to see. So in the batch status there's some additional information here, like message ID numbers and so on, which you can really pretty much ignore, but the status now says lodge complete. So I'll just collapse that section. If you click on these blue title bars, it expands or collapses the section, and by default I've got some of these sections collapsed where you don't really need to pay too much attention to them. Alright, so now what I was saying was that if you find you've made a mistake, you can click this amend STP lodge button. Okay, why don't I do that now and see what happens. So it changes the amendment to yes. Okay, and then you can, you know, go and fix it up and lodge it again. And another thing it does here is it enables this lodge STP batch button. Okay, that would replace your previous lodgement. So if you'd lodged something and you realize, hey, I didn't get that right, go and fix it, amend this, and then lodge it again. Okay, there is another button here called update STP batch, and that's grayed out. It's actually used for when you want to just advise the ATO of some information, but there is no actual pay. So if these amounts are 0, like there is no actual payment made on the payslip, you can do an update event. Anyway, I'll do a separate video on that because it's probably an unusual thing. Okay, well, that basically completes you know, the Single Touch Payroll lodgement. I'll probably show you another thing just to wrap it up here. If we go to batches and go into this batch again, go to the batch transactions and double click on this employee, we have a payslip PDF, and I'll just when you click on it, it asks you to save it somewhere, and I'll just bring that over so you can see it, and it gives it's a, you know, a payslip that you should give to your employee, of course. So on the payslip, it's got, you know, your year-to-date amounts, which is from the Single Touch Payroll lodgement. Okay, so they don't get a payment summary anymore, and when at the end of the year, you know, in fact with each pay they're updated on their year-to-date amounts, and at the end of the year that's all they need. When they do their tax return, those amounts will pre-fill on them, and they and that's all they need. The payslip looks a little bit plain, I guess, and you can add a logo to it. I'll show you how to do that in another video, because this video is already at 40 minutes, so it's a bit of an epic video for me, but I just wanted to make a video that goes through the whole process so that people can see it all in one go. So anyway, I hope that this video has been useful to you, and thank you for watching.